Then once I started going down the YouTube rabbit hole, I started learning about, I'll use degen, right? So
Yep.
that you're into the degens, like we mentioned earlier, stable fund, all that stuff, crypto program, like everything.
Because I was in every degen play you could imagine because I was so fascinated by the returns. And back in the day, if you played your degen cards right, projects lasted on average when we calculated it around 62 days on average. So if you were in and out within 30 days, you were typically winning. But then all the scammers caught on. Because I don't think a lot of degen plays were actually scams. They were just degen plays and liquidity was removed. Like they weren't long plays. But then when the scammers caught on, the 62-day average went to 12 days because some projects were rugging within 24 hours. It moved the average. And that's when we got out of the plays completely because you couldn't tell the good guys from the bad guys, so to speak.
I remember your first Wolf Capital videos, like when you were saying the same thing, get out in 30 days, get out in 60 days.
Yeah.
Uh, didn't really take your advice, but
Yeah.
I did
It's
take my
addicting,
profit,
I get
but I
it.
took my profits out. And unfortunately, some of those profits I put in like green figures, and then green figures went down. So
Right.
then after a while, you're just tired of the degens because I had a couple
100%.
buddies following me too. And even though we've done well, we've won more than we've lost. There's no way of like
Yes.
vetting the scammers because they would get on camera, they would do audits and
Yep.
KYCs, and there either be bad trades that would wipe out everything because they were leveraged or
Yep.
whatever. Anyways,
It's why
here
we
we
just
are.
even completely stopped sharing anything to do with any projects, even on YouTube, even if it's a solid pick, like even if it's like a blue chip type play, we won't share it. Some people don't like that. But to me, I'm like, the project is less important. That's the tactic. Then you've got the strategy, and then you've got the actual whole philosophy and system of everything. And I'm just like, the projects are easy. You can find an abundance of projects all the time. But I think when people are blindly getting into it, then you start feeling responsible for it, which is totally legit. I'm not going to say I wouldn't when I saw a project crash. I was like, well, I had a play in this. Like let's just stop doing it completely because that's the right thing to do. So if your friends are losing because of it, even if everyone's winning, there's still a part of it that's just kind of like, like, did I
Doesn't
have something to do with this?
Yeah, it doesn't feel right.
Does it feel good?
And it was greed that was motivating it because you bring up the daily interest calculator, and you
Oh
start,
yeah.
and you're like, oh my god, I'm going to be a millionaire next year.
Yeah.
So once I realized, and it's funny because I don't think I'm a stupid guy, but once I realized that the CL pools are totally liquid, like a click away, maybe 30 seconds away, and your money's liquid. I'm like, why am I handing over my funds to
Mm-hmm.
lock away forever, like a miner or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And then just that doesn't make any sense anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So my
So good.
remaining degens, I just take my profits and I put them all into the CLs,
So
which is
good.
great because every couple of days I'm throwing money into my CLs.
Yeah. So talk about that. Talk about the because I think a lot of people are there. Talk about the transition from one-click degen plays because I think they're really easy to do. You just move some BNB onto your wallet and you deposit it. That's all you ever have to do. Versus liquidity pools, concentrated liquidity, kind of like the true DeFi stuff. Was that a hard transition? Did it seem more complicated than it actually was? What's the learning curve? Or someone's trying to transition maybe, or is like, I'm so done with degen plays. What just a little insight, a little wisdom from because you've done it, you've successfully transitioned.
So I don't think it's that difficult. If you're in different types of degen plays and you're moving your funds with bridges to Polygon or Avalanche and or BSC, those are kind of like the big three for degens.
Yep.
Once you get used to that, then the concentrated liquidity stuff is the same, right? You're filling in the boxes, you're sliding bars left and right, you're hitting deposit, you're confirming on MetaMask. That wasn't the hard part.
The mechanics aren't difficult. Love
The
it. Those are
mechanics
not.
aren't difficult. So, like I said, having experience with degen projects, it was I had no problem. But if I was trying to explain to my friends all the steps to do concentrated liquidity or just liquidity pools, it would be difficult. I think sometimes I tell the people in the community, just follow the steps because you
Right.
guys literally cover everything. And there's nothing on like there's no oh we forgot to cover that. It's there. The gas fees are there, impermanent loss,
Yep.
ranges.
And once you do
once,
it 2 or 3 times, that's what I always tell people is do a practice pool of like literally do a BNB and USDT on pancakes, like something so simple that you literally, it's like do it once and twice, then go on Trader Joe, do it once, and then go on Uniswap and do it once. And after that, you're good. And then I think the final missing piece is now ranges, is now there's a decision to make on your ranges. But what we're finding is a wider range because it lasts longer and because it's a little more stable on average over 30 days. It can create the same, if not more, because your auto balancing and all that can eat up a lot of the fees. So we've just been setting a lot wider ranges than we ever have. And like I barely check my liquidity pool positions. David sets pretty wide ranges. Colin goes a little bit tighter because he's so much more active. But some of the returns, like, I mean, you can tell me if I'm making this up, but like 0.3% to 0.8% is not unrealistic. If anything, it's not that difficult if you know what you're doing.
I think getting it, like the other nugget, with just getting into a pool and seeing the possibilities. Even Aperture is great for that. And then you're like, wow, I'm actually making this return, which I'm happy with every day going forward. Compared to traditional investing, right? And then once you actually see that, you see that your position's liquid, and it's kind of like that aha moment.
You're the bank.
That's what it was for me.
You're literally the bank.